Hey guys, today I'll show you a science fiction thriller TV series named The X-Files Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins with a wild woman frantically running through a wild forest. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blows and a bright flash of light streaks across the sky. A man, his entire body glowing silver, appears beside her. The next day, the woman is found dead, with 2 eerie red marks on her body. The investigating officer is shocked to recognize the victim. She was a high school classmate of his son. The scene shifts to Dana, a newly appointed special agent at the FBI. It's her first day on the job and she is assigned to the X-Files division, a mysterious department dedicated to investigating supernatural and unexplained phenomena. The only other member of the division is Agent Mulder, an eccentric investigator obsessed with extraterrestrial life. Because the woman's death was highly unusual, the case is handed over to Mulder's department. In fact, this is the 4th such incident, with all victims bearing the same 2 strange red marks on their bodies, yet none have any visible wounds. As soon as Mulder takes on the case, he does something shocking. He exhumes one of the victims' graves. The revelation is even more bizarre. The victim had died from hypothermia, despite it being the middle of summer. But the real shock comes when Dana conducts an autopsy. The body isn't human anymore. It has mutated into a primate, resembling a chimpanzee. Their investigation leads them to a psychiatric hospital, where they discover that the deceased had been a patient due to severe mental instability. While there, they meet 2 of the victim's former high school classmates. One of them, Billy, has been in a vegetative state since a car accident, while the other, a girl in a wheelchair, reads to him from a book. When Mulder insists on examining the girl's sexy body, she suddenly becomes agitated, violently thrashing and knocking things over. Blood begins to pour from her nose. In the chaos, Mulder notices something chilling. The girl has the same 2 red marks on her waist as the previous victims. Mulder theorizes that these individuals were abducted by aliens and used as test subjects, with the red marks serving as identifiers. Dana, however, remains skeptical. That night, they visit the forest where the first victim was found, only to be confronted by the local police officer who orders them to leave. With no other choice, they drive away. As they check the time, Mulder's watch reads 9:03 p.m. Suddenly, a blinding light engulfs their car. In what feels like an instant, the time on Mulder's watch jumps to 9:12 p.m., exactly 9 minutes lost, with no memory of what transpired. Later that night, Dana makes a chilling discovery. She now has the same red marks on her waist. Panicked, she rushes to Mulder, who simply chuckles and tells her it's just a mosquito bite. Mulder later confides in Dana, revealing why he is so convinced about alien involvement. When he was a child, he witnessed extraterrestrials abduct his younger sister. At that moment, he receives an anonymous phone call. The girl in the wheelchair has died. Strangely, her watch had stopped at exactly 9:03 p.m., the same time they had experienced the missing 9 minutes. Soon, a terrified young woman approaches them for help. She reveals that she, along with Bill and the other victims, attended a gathering in the forest. Ever since that night, they all developed the strange marks, and one by one, they started dying. Just as Dana begins to question her further, the local officer appears and takes the woman away. Now, the only person left unexamined is Billy, the comatose young man. When they rush back to the hospital, Billy is still lying motionless in his bed. But Dana makes a startling discovery: traces of forest debris on the soles of his feet, proving that he had been in the woods recently. But how could a vegetative patient leave his hospital bed and walk into the forest? That night, Mulder and Dana stake out the forest, hoping to uncover the truth. But before they can act, the officer from earlier arrives, gun in hand, determined to stop them. It turns out he is Billy's father, and he knows the terrifying truth. His son is responsible for the deaths, and he is willing to end Billy's life to stop it from happening again. Just as expected, Billy appears in the forest, abducting the woman. At that moment, the clock strikes 9:03 p.m. A violent wind picks up and a blinding light flashes through the trees. However, the presence of Mulder and Dana seems to disrupt the abduction. The light vanishes and Billy collapses, regaining consciousness for the first time in years. Overwhelmed, he embraces his father. Under hypnosis, Billy finally reveals the truth. He had been abducted by aliens and controlled as their puppet. His role was to select human test subjects for them. With this revelation, the case reaches its conclusion, though the larger mystery remains. The scene shifts to the year 1947 when a family is driving through a forest when suddenly their car gets a flat tire. The father steps out to change it, while the mother stays in the car with their sleeping child. Without warning, an unseen force drags the man away. His wife frantically calls the police, who arrive with search dogs to comb through the forest. Eventually, they find the man's body, but one of his legs has been devoured by an unknown creature. Following strange strange noises, the officers track the sound to a cave. Without hesitation, they fire their weapons into the darkness. Fast forward to the present day. FBI agents Mulder and Dana receive a new case. A homeless man's body has been discovered deep in the same forest with his arms and legs eaten. The bite marks, disturbingly, match human teeth. Digging into old case files, Mulder finds the 1947 incident and discovers that it didn't end with the father's death. After the police opened fire on the cave, they killed a towering man. An autopsy later confirmed that his stomach contained human remains. Mulder begins to suspect that history is repeating itself and that wild, primitive humans may still be lurking in the forest. Arriving at the crime scene, Mulder speaks with a local officer who claims to have seen a strange man in the woods 32 years ago. The officer recalls an unsettling detail. He once found a half-eaten rabbit with a human tooth embedded in the flesh. Mulder heads to an encampment of homeless people to gather information about the recent victim. A man in a vest claims to know him and, after asking Mulder for some spare change, pulls out a sketch. The figure in the drawing is a wild man whom he says rummages through the garbage every night for food. Determined to catch the creature, Mulder sets up surveillance near the trash heap. That night, rustling sounds emerge from the darkness. Moments later, a long-haired wild man appears, moving with incredible agility, almost like a monkey. Before Mulder can react, the creature leaps onto a rooftop and vanishes. But before Mulder can investigate further, the town sheriff arrives with his men and arrests him. It turns out the town thrives on tourism and gambling, and the sheriff fears that Mulder's investigation will ruin business. He refuses to let the rumors of a wild man spread. Fortunately, Dana secures Mulder's release. Just as Mulder hits a dead end, a local officer calls with shocking news. A wild man's corpse has been found in the forest. However, the body has been dead for over 6 months, yet attacks have continued within that time frame, meaning there must be more than one wild human in the forest. Mulder speculates that the remaining one is female. Mulder, Dana, and a team of officers return to the area near the garbage dump to search. Inside an old warehouse, they discover traces of blood, evidence that the wild woman may be injured. Mulder and Dana stake out the warehouse, hoping she will return. But the town sheriff, still determined to cover up the truth, arrives with his men to shut down the investigation. As Mulder evades them, he finally spots the wild woman on a rooftop and gives chase. The pursuit leads them to a dimly lit storage room where the wild woman suddenly attacks. For a brief moment, Mulder is captivated. She is young, beautiful, and strangely mesmerizing. However, as she reaches for him, poised to tear into his organs, Dana bursts in, startling the woman and forcing her to flee like a wild chicken. After tending to his wounds, Mulder immediately leads a search party into the forest. They manage to hit the wild woman with a tranquilizer dart, and Mulder races after her, hoping to capture her alive. But by the time he arrives, it's too late. The town sheriff and his men have already shot her dead. Unconcerned that she was human, the sheriff sees her only as a threat to the town's reputation and eliminates her without hesitation. Mulder is devastated. Back at FBI headquarters, Dana delivers the autopsy report. The wild woman's stomach contained human remains, and she was estimated to be between 25 and 30 years old. However, she was not some prehistoric throwback. No one knows why or how she became what she was. But the most shocking revelation was that she had given birth. In the final scene, deep within the forest, a small, wide-eyed, feral child peeks out from a cave. Years from now, he too will hunt like his parents, feeding on raw flesh, surviving in the wild. FBI agents Mulder and Dana are members of the X-Files division, a department dedicated to investigating supernatural and unexplained phenomena. One day, they receive a new case and head to the morgue, where 2 bodies are being held. Despite having been dead for over 6 hours, the corpses remain unnaturally warm, and their muscles occasionally twitch. The coroner explains that the cause of death is highly unusual. Both victims had their hyoid bones, tongue bones, and esophagi crushed by an unknown force. Yet strangely, there are no external wounds or any signs of physical impact. Mulder recalls a similar case from the X-Files archives and begins to suspect that the murders were committed using telekinesis. Across the city, a young woman named Lauren works at an ordinary company. While reporting an issue to HR, she becomes agitated, and inexplicably, a colleague's cup tips over on its own. Later, she enters the office of the company's CEO. Their conversation reveals that a close friend and mentor of Lauren's, a former senior executive, recently passed away. Heartbroken, Lauren submits her resignation. The CEO, unwilling to let her go, reaches out to stop her, but the moment he touches her, his bracelet tightens painfully around his wrist, forcing him to pull away in shock. These strange occurrences suggest that Lauren might possess the very telekinetic abilities Mulder is investigating. Through further investigation, Mulder and Dana discover that the 2 deceased men were terrorists. Reviewing security footage, they see Lauren being attacked by the two men at an ATM. However, the footage also captures a shadowy, indistinct figure nearby. When they question Lauren, she insists that she managed to escape on her own, and when she looked back, the two attackers had mysteriously died. With no concrete evidence, Mulder and Dana prepare to leave. However, as soon as they get into their car, the doors lock on their own, and the vehicle suddenly spins out of control, only stopping after crashing into another car. Convinced that Lauren is hiding something, they dig deeper into her past. They uncover that Lauren was the secretary of Howard, the late senior executive who allegedly took his own life 3 months ago. When they secretly photograph Lauren at home and enhance the image, they are stunned. Howard's figure appears in the background. But how is that possible when he's been dead for months? Lauren eventually packs up and leaves the company after a heated confrontation with the CEO. Growing increasingly fearful, she contacts Mulder, asking to meet and reveal the truth. However, before she can see him, two assassins, a man and a woman, arrive at her home, sent by the CEO to eliminate her. Just as they move in to kill her, an unseen force intervenes. Right before Lauren's eyes, the woman is strangled to death by the same invisible power that killed the terrorists. At that moment, Mulder and Dana arrive, witnessing the male assassin's death firsthand. Shaken, Lauren confesses the truth. Howard's ghost has been protecting her. Before his death, he had discovered that the company's CEO was secretly supplying restricted chemicals to terrorists. When Howard refused to stay silent, the CEO arranged his murder, staging it as a suicide. Fearing that Howard may have confided in Lauren before his death, the CEO sent the two terrorists to silence her. However, they ended up being killed by Howard's vengeful spirit. With Lauren's testimony, the FBI launches an investigation into the CEO and his company, but despite multiple searches, they fail to find any solid evidence of his dealings with terrorists. Just when it seems like he will get away with everything, a determined Lauren makes a bold move. She deliberately provokes the CEO, who attacks Dana in his rage. At that moment, Howard's ghost appears once more. With supernatural force, he tears open the wallpaper in the office, revealing hidden documents, the damning proof of the CEO's crimes. In the end, the CEO is arrested. Lauren moves on with her life, and Howard's spirit continues to watch over her, silently protecting her from the beyond. The scene shifts to a team of scientists being sent on an expedition to Antarctica. However, midway through their mission, all contact with them is lost. Agents Mulder and Dana, along with 3 professors plus a pilot, arrive at the Antarctic research base to investigate. Upon arrival, they find the facility in complete disarray, littered with corpses. While searching the base, they discover an ice sample the research team had excavated, as well as a highly aggressive sled dog. The dog suddenly attacks the pilot, leaving him with a deep, bloody wound. After subduing the animal, they notice strange black spots on its body, and something appears to be moving beneath the skin along its spine. At the same time, the pilot, while treating his wound, discovers similar black spots forming under his armpit. Dana conducts an autopsy on the deceased scientists and determines that they all died from violently killing each other. Blood tests on both the corpses and the sled dog reveal the presence of an unknown single-celled organism, one that seems to have originated from the ice and may be contagious. Since everyone had been in contact with the infected dog, Dana insists that each of them provide a blood sample to check for infection. However, the pilot refuses. His demeanor shifts dramatically. He becomes aggressive and unstable, strongly suggesting that he has already been infected. The group restrains him and finds something moving beneath the skin along his spine. One of the professors quickly takes a knife and cuts into the affected area, pulling out a long, wriggling parasite. The moment the parasite is extracted, the pilot dies instantly. Through further analysis, they conclude that the single-celled organisms found in the victim's blood are actually the larval stage of the parasite. Once inside a host, these parasites settle in the neck and spine, altering behavior and inducing extreme aggression. Removing them forcibly releases a lethal toxin that kills the host instantly. As a violent snowstorm sets in, the team realizes they are stranded at the station for at least 3 days. Fear and paranoia begin to take hold as the group starts to suspect one another. To ease tensions, they conduct thorough body inspections for any signs of infection. Fortunately, none of them appear to have the black spots. That night, Mulder hears a noise and steps out of his room to investigate. As he approaches a storage cabinet, the lifeless body of the sidekick professor suddenly falls out. The others rush to the scene and immediately accuse Mulder of being infected and responsible for the murder. With no way to defend himself, Mulder is forcibly locked inside the storage room for quarantine. Meanwhile, Dana discovers something unusual. When two of these parasites are placed together, they attack each other until both are destroyed. The same applies to their adult forms. This leads to a possible cure. If an infected person is implanted with another parasite, the two will fight to the death inside the host, neutralizing the infection. To test the theory, they introduce an adult parasite into the infected sled dog. After a brief seizure, the dog miraculously returns to normal, expelling the dead parasite through its waste. Encouraged by the success, they prepare to implant a parasite into Mulder to cure him. However, Mulder refuses, knowing he isn't infected. To prove his innocence, he allows Dana to inspect his neck, and when no signs of a parasite are found, she chooses to believe him. This means the real infected person must be among the remaining two professors. The moment Mulder steps out of the storage room, both of them suddenly tackle him, insisting on injecting him with the parasite. In a desperate moment, the male professor catches a glimpse of movement beneath the female professor's skin. She is the true infected host. He shoves her away, and realizing she's been exposed, she attempts to flee. Mulder and Dana manage to restrain her while the male professor implants the parasite into her body. In the end, the parasite inside her is eliminated. A rescue team arrives just in time, evacuating the 4 survivors. Meanwhile, the research base is completely destroyed by authorities, leaving nothing behind but a scorched wasteland. The scene shifts to a man in a black suit working in his office. Suddenly, the screws on the air vent loosen, and a hand emerges from within. The moment the man steps inside, he is brutally murdered. The killer then vanishes back into the ventilation system. Cut to Agent Dana, who is having lunch with her friend from the Major Crimes Unit. During their conversation, she learns about the case, a serial killer who operates in locked rooms, always removing the victims' livers with his bare hands and leaving behind no useful evidence. So far, 3 victims have been found, and with no leads in sight, her friend turns to Dana for help. Dana and Mulder arrive at the crime scene and discover a distorted fingerprint near the air vent. Mulder tells Dana that similar cases have been occurring for the past 60 years, 10 in total. The killer follows a strict pattern, committing 5 murders every 30 years using the same gruesome method, extracting the victims' livers by hand. Most disturbingly, the same fingerprint has been found at every crime scene, suggesting that the serial killer is at least 100 years old. Based on psychological profiling, Dana deduces that most serial killers tend to revisit their crime scenes to admire their work. They stake out the underground parking lot, and sure enough, they catch a trembling young man, Thomas, lurking near the air vents. Thomas is taken in for questioning and surprisingly passes a polygraph test with ease. With no solid evidence or motive to hold him, the Major Crimes Unit decides to release him. However, Mulder notices an anomaly in the test results. When asked if he was over 100 years old, Thomas's readings showed a slight fluctuation. The unit dismisses Mulder's concerns and even mocks him for his outlandish theory. Determined to prove his point, Mulder demonstrates a shocking discovery to Dana. When Thomas's fingerprint is stretched and distorted, it perfectly matches the one found at the crime scene. Dana is stunned. That same night, after being released, Thomas targets another victim, a middle-aged man. Thomas climbs onto the man's chimney, and in a horrifying display, his body contorts and slithers through the narrow shaft, entering the house. His eyes glow an eerie yellow as he kills the man using the same gruesome method. At the crime scene, Mulder and Dana find Thomas's fingerprints again, along with evidence that the killer has been taking personal belongings from his victims. Rather than alerting Thomas, they dig into his background, only to find that he has no recorded history. He was never born, never married, and has never been declared dead. Dana seeks out an aging detective who investigated similar murders 60 years ago. The retired officer, now frail and old, presents them with archived evidence, including a secret photograph of the prime suspect from back then. Though there was never enough proof to arrest him, the suspect in the photo is unmistakably Thomas, looking exactly the same as he does now, unchanged despite 6 decades passing. Without wasting time, Mulder and Dana track down Thomas's old residence, a dilapidated house. Inside, they discover a hidden passage leading to the sewers, where they find personal belongings from the victims and Thomas's nesting site, surrounded by traces of bile. Mulder pieces it all together. Thomas is a genetic mutant. Every 30 years, he murders 5 victims, harvesting their livers and bile to build a nest. He then enters a hibernation period, sustained by the nutrients from the organs. When he awakens 30 years later, the cycle repeats itself. Just as they prepare to leave and call for backup, Thomas steals Dana's necklace, marking her as his next target. Realizing the danger, Mulder rushes back to Thomas's lair and finds Dana's necklace, confirming his worst fears. Meanwhile, Thomas has already already infiltrated Dana's home, squeezing through a small opening in the door. Just as he is about to attack, Mulder arrives in time, and the two agents work together to subdue and capture him. Locked away in prison, Thomas sits in his cell, using his saliva to mold a nest out of newspaper. Dana informs Mulder that forensic tests show Thomas has an extremely slow metabolic rate, which explains why he doesn't age. As the case comes to a close, the two agents leave the prison. But unknown to them, Thomas is staring at the narrow food slot in his cell door, a sinister smile creeping across his face. The scene shifts to a well-dressed man preparing to leave home. As he bids farewell to his wife, his body suddenly bursts into flames for no apparent reason. Helpless, his wife and bystanders can only watch in horror as he burns alive. Cut to FBI agents Mulder and Dana. One day, Mulder's ex-girlfriend, known for her strikingly large eyes, approaches him with a case. 3 congressmen have recently died from spontaneous combustion. The deaths appear to be intentional rather than accidental, as each victim's wife received a love letter from the arsonist before their husband's death. That night, a man is drinking at a bar when an attractive woman strikes up a conversation with him. To impress her, he performs a small magic trick, lighting his fingertips on fire. The woman finds it amusing, but moments later, the flames on his hand grow uncontrollably. He becomes frenzied, unable to stop the fire, and in his hysteria, he sets the entire bar ablaze. Mulder visits the hospital to speak with the woman who survived the fire. He and his ex-girlfriend suspect that the suspect perished in the flames. However, with no body recovered, the case remains open. Meanwhile, a British congressman moves into a new residence with his wife and children. Their new butler, Bob, warmly welcomes them. Unbeknownst to the family, Bob is the same man from the bar fire. The real butler has been murdered and buried in the garden. Bob took his place to get close to the congressman's beautiful wife. Like his previous victims, Bob plans to stay close, waiting for the right moment to set the family ablaze. Bob gains the children's trust by performing a small fire trick, lighting a cigarette with his fingers. Just as he prepares to target the children first, their mother walks in, interrupting his plan. Dana, having studied the psychology of arsonists, deduces that Bob is a deranged sociopath. His obsession with unattainable women fuels his violent urges, and his self-loathing and cowardice drive him to kill their husbands. Mulder and his ex attend a high-profile gala to gather intel, unaware that the targeted congressman and his wife are also in attendance, with Bob in tow, still posing as their butler. On the way to the event, Mulder's ex continuously flirts with him, making Dana uncomfortable. That night, a fire breaks out at the hotel hosting the gala. When Mulder hears that the congressman's children are trapped on an upper floor, he rushes to save them but is quickly overcome by thick smoke. Just as he loses consciousness, a figure emerges carrying the children. It's Bob. Playing the hero, Bob manipulates the congressman and his wife into trusting him even more. Meanwhile, Dana compiles a list of all the household staff employed by the 3 deceased congressmen. She finds a common link. Each family had hired the same British gardener. Though initially dismissed as a suspect, Dana uncovers a shocking truth. The gardener died in a fire 71 years ago, yet records show he has recently entered the U.S. As the bar survivor recovers, she helps police create a composite sketch of the arsonist. Mulder and Dana instantly recognize him. It's the congressman's butler, Bob. Racing to the congressman's home, they warn the family, only to be told that Bob is upstairs playing with the children. They rush to the second floor, but neither Bob nor the kids are there. Instead, they discover the body of a staff member in the bathroom. Suddenly, the entire house goes up in flames. Mulder evacuates the congressman and his wife, then bravely returns upstairs to search for the children. Bob appears, trapping Mulder in the burning house. As he tries to escape downstairs, Dana corners him at gunpoint. But with the entire house engulfed in flames, she hesitates to shoot. At that moment, Mulder's ex hurls a cup of accelerant onto Bob. Instantly, he recoils in agony, clutching his face as he flees. Meanwhile, Mulder overcomes his fear of fire and successfully rescues the trapped children. Realizing he has no way out, Bob chooses to set himself ablaze rather than be captured. In front of everyone, he collapses in a fiery heap. In the final scene, Bob is taken to a Boston hospital, severely burned but still alive. Just when everyone assumes he's doomed, his body begins to regenerate. Dana predicts that within a month he will make a full recovery. For now, the case is closed, but something tells them this isn't the last they've seen of him. The scene shifts to scientists analyzing images sent back by a Mars probe. To their shock, one of the photos appears to show a human face on the planet's surface. However, the head of the space agency strongly denies its authenticity, dismissing it as a mere trick of light and shadow. Cut to FBI Special Agents Mulder and Dana. One day, a communications officer from the space agency approaches them, claiming that someone is deliberately sabotaging the agency from within. 2 weeks earlier, they had planned to launch a satellite into deep space, but just 3 seconds before liftoff, a propulsion failure forced them to abort the mission. Later, an anonymous source sent her a classified diagnostic report revealing that the spacecraft's propulsion hatch had been intentionally damaged. The hatch, however, is made of titanium alloy, requiring an extremely high temperature to break, something an ordinary person couldn't possibly achieve. Mulder and Dana head to the space agency, where they meet its director. He was once an astronaut and nearly lost his life on a mission to Mars years ago. Coincidentally, he was also one of Mulder's childhood heroes. The director vehemently denies any foul play, insisting the malfunction was nothing more than a mechanical failure. The agency soon attempts a second launch, and this time the spacecraft lifts off successfully. With their job seemingly done, Mulder and Dana prepare to leave, until the communications officer rushes after them in distress. The spacecraft has encountered another anomaly. An unknown force is interfering with its remote control system. With ground control unable to regain contact, the spacecraft is drifting dangerously closer to the sun. If they can't regain control soon, the astronauts on board will be burned alive. Strangely, the director shows no concern, as if he's perfectly fine with the astronauts perishing in deep space. The officer suggests shutting down the remote control system and switching to manual operation. After a tense struggle, the astronauts manage to regain control of the spacecraft. The team breathes a sigh of relief, everyone except the director, who seems visibly displeased that the crisis was averted. That night, the director returns home, only for his reflection in the mirror to suddenly morph into a ghostly face. It turns out he has been possessed by the same eerie face seen on Mars. He was the one who sabotaged the propulsion hatch. As the ghostly entity detaches from his body, it flies off into space, heading straight for the spacecraft to cause further destruction. Soon, the astronauts send out a distress signal. A mysterious, invisible force is violently slamming into the ship, causing an oxygen leak. With time running out, Mulder rushes to find the director and bring him back to the agency. But even as the crew faces imminent death, the director coldly insists that the astronauts must complete their mission at all costs. Miraculously, the satellite deployment is completed. Just as the astronauts prepare for their return trip, the ghostly entity attacks again. Hearing this, the director is flooded with memories of his own Mars mission, when he faced the exact same nightmare. Overwhelmed, he breaks down, screaming in terror. Oxygen levels on the spacecraft are now critically low, with less than 30 minutes left. Mulder realizes that only the director knows how to end this crisis. Desperately, he presses him for a solution. The director, struggling against the ghostly presence still gripping his mind, tearfully confesses that the entity is controlling him, trying to prevent the astronauts from returning home. As the ghostly face flickers across his own, he suddenly regains clarity and blurts out the answer: the ship must change its course by 35 degrees to escape. Mulder immediately relays the information to the communications officer, who orders the spacecraft to adjust its trajectory. The plan works, and the astronauts finally break free from danger. The truth is revealed. The ghostly face on Mars is an extraterrestrial life form. Decades ago, during the director's mission to space, he encountered the entity and became its unwilling host. The alien did not want humanity to discover its existence, so it possessed the director and used him to sabotage space missions. However, the director's conscience never fully faded. Whenever he regained control, he fought back. Though the alien forced him to destroy the spacecraft's propulsion hatch, his human side secretly sent the diagnostic report to the communications officer, hoping she would uncover the sabotage in time to prevent a disaster. In the final scene, the director is in the hospital, still possessed by the entity. Knowing he can never truly escape its grasp, and desperate to atone for his past mistakes, he makes the ultimate sacrifice. In one last act of defiance, he leaps from the hospital rooftop, soaring like a goose through the air one final time before plummeting to his death. With his life's last mission complete, the case is closed. The scene shifts to Dana and Mulder being on duty when Dana receives a visit from her parents. Her father, a retired colonel, spends some time with her before leaving. Later that evening, as Dana dozes off on her couch, she suddenly sees her father sitting across from her, silently watching. His lips move as if he's trying to speak, but no sound comes out. Before she can react, the phone rings. When she turns back, her father is gone. Thinking she must have imagined it, she picks up the call. It's her mother, delivering devastating news. Her father suffered a heart attack and passed away an hour ago. Overwhelmed with grief, Dana recalls the vision she just saw, wondering if she just witnessed her father's ghost. Cut to a remote countryside road where a young couple is working out in their car. Suddenly, someone knocks on the window. Outside stands a man claiming to be a police officer, ordering them to step out for a routine check. Suspicious, the young man demands to see the officer's badge. Without warning, the stranger attacks. Back at the FBI, Dana is still reeling from her father's death when she and Mulder are assigned a new case. The couple from earlier has been kidnapped. Even more unsettling, exactly 1 year ago on this same date, another couple was abducted under similar circumstances, only to be found murdered a week later. Their mission is to locate the victims before the killer strikes again. Their investigation leads them to a notorious criminal, a convicted murderer with an alleged psychic ability. He claims he can help find the kidnapper. Mulder is skeptical, believing the criminal is just a lunatic playing mind games. To test him, Mulder hands him a random piece of fabric and asks what he senses. The criminal theatrically convulses before declaring that he has seen a vision of a boy tied up in an abandoned warehouse near an angel statue. Mulder scoffs and reveals the truth. The fabric is nothing more than a scrap from his own shirt, completely unrelated to the case. Furious at the deception, he storms off. Just as Dana is about to leave, the criminal suddenly starts humming a tune, her father's favorite song. Then, in an eerie transformation, his face momentarily shifts to resemble her father's. Shaken, Dana begins to consider the possibility that the criminal truly has a supernatural gift. Following his clue, she drives to the location he mentioned. To her astonishment, she finds an abandoned warehouse with an angel statue nearby. Inside, she discovers a bracelet, later confirmed to belong to one of the kidnapped victims. She reports her findings to Mulder, convinced that the criminal is the real deal. But Mulder remains unconvinced, suspecting that the criminal is actually an accomplice in the kidnappings, which would explain his uncanny knowledge of the case. This disagreement escalates into a heated argument. Dana, however, chooses to trust the criminal. The criminal claims to have another vision. This time, the killer is hiding in a small boathouse. Before they leave, he gives Mulder a cryptic warning: stay away from the White Cross or he'll be in danger. Following the criminal's lead, Dana and Mulder locate the boathouse and rescue one of the victims, but the kidnapper escapes. During the chase, the suspect manages to land a brutal blow on Mulder, knocking him down. As Dana rushes to his side, she notices something chilling. Right beside him stands a white cross. Just as the criminal had warned, Mulder was nearly killed. Fortunately, he receives immediate medical attention and survives. The rescued victim identifies the kidnapper. His family died in a car crash years ago, and since then he's harbored a twisted obsession. Every few years, he abducts young couples caught kissing in their cars, reenacting his own trauma before murdering them. Dana's belief in the criminal's abilities grows stronger. However, time is running out. The criminal is just 2 days away from his scheduled execution. Desperate to save himself, he pleads with Dana to convince the judge to overturn his death sentence, offering in return to help locate the second missing victim. But given his violent past, the judge flatly refuses Dana's request. Determined to rescue the victim, Dana deceives the criminal, falsely telling him that his execution has been called off. Tears stream down his face. Grateful for this supposed second chance, he uses his abilities one last time, revealing that the final victim is being held in an abandoned brewery. As Dana prepares to leave, the criminal quietly says he knows she lied. The judge didn't change his decision, but he still thanks her for trying. Before she goes, he gives her one final warning: stay away from the devil's painting. Following his clue, Dana locates the kidnapper just as he is about to kill his last victim. She chases him through the abandoned brewery until they reach a wall covered in a grotesque devil's mural. Remembering the criminal's warning, she hesitates, but the kidnapper doesn't. As he steps forward, the wooden floor beneath the mural gives way, sending him plunging to his death. In the end, Dana visits the criminal one last time to thank him, saying she believed in him all along. But there is no escaping justice. The criminal is led to the gas chamber where his life comes to an end. Perhaps in helping to save others, he found his own redemption. The case is closed. The scene shifts to Tennessee in 1983, where a devastating fire leaves many dead and injured. Amid the chaos, a kind-hearted pastor and his adopted son come across a charred corpse. The boy gently touches the body's hand and murmurs a prayer. Miraculously, the corpse comes back to life. Fast forward 10 years, and Mulder and Dana receive a new case. A police captain from Tennessee has sent them a videotape featuring the same pastor and his now-grown adoptive son, Sam, performing what appears to be a miraculous healing ritual on a terminally ill church member. However, instead of curing the patient, Sam's touch leads to the person's sudden death. Their mission is to travel to Tennessee, gather evidence, and bring the pastor and his son to justice. Mulder, intrigued by the case, wastes no time heading to Tennessee with Dana. They attend the pastor's church service, but find that Sam is nowhere to be seen. Later, they meet with the police captain who sent them the tape, and he takes them to the grave of the church member who mysteriously died. Dana suggests an autopsy, but as soon as the coffin is unearthed, a strange-looking man intervenes, accompanied by a group of church followers. He claims that disturbing the dead is sacrilegious. Forced to back off, Dana and Mulder later track Sam down at a local bar. Sam insists that his ability to heal the sick was a divine gift, but something has tainted his power. Now, instead of saving lives, he accidentally takes them. He is tormented with guilt. Mulder and Dana dismiss his story as nonsense, but what Sam says next leaves Mulder stunned. He accurately recounts a deeply buried secret. Mulder's sister disappeared mysteriously when they were children. Until now, only Dana knew about this. Before Mulder can process this revelation, the police captain arrests Sam on charges of murder. In court, the judge and attorneys rule that there is no sufficient evidence to convict Sam, and he is released. Yet Sam remains convinced of his own guilt. Suddenly, a swarm of locusts floods the courtroom, which Sam interprets as divine punishment. His belief that he is beyond redemption only deepens. Later, Mulder and Dana discuss Sam's case. Mulder thinks Sam is innocent, but Dana remains convinced he is a killer. Their argument is interrupted by a knock at the door. It's the strange-looking church member from earlier. He says the pastor wants to meet with them. The pastor swears that Sam is a good man, an abandoned child he took in and raised, and that he could never be a murderer. He invites them to attend that night's gathering at the church. During the service, the pastor calls the odd-looking man to the stage to share his story. As it turns out, he himself was once saved by Sam's healing touch. Then, Sam is asked to demonstrate his power again. A gravely ill woman steps forward filled with hope, but as soon as Sam touches her, she convulses and dies on the spot. This time, there's no escaping blame. Sam is arrested once more. Dana persuades the victim's parents to allow an autopsy, and the results reveal that the woman died from arsenic poisoning, not from Sam's touch. This means she was murdered, deliberately poisoned before Sam even laid hands on her. Mulder rushes to the jail to tell Sam the truth, hoping to ease his guilt. He reassures him that by morning, the lab report will clear his name, but Sam refuses to listen. He believes he deserves punishment and angrily sends Mulder's smelly butt away. Moments after Mulder leaves, tragedy strikes. Sam is brutally murdered in his jail cell. While investigating, Mulder and Dana discover something odd on the courthouse rooftop: potatoes. It turns out someone had deliberately released the swarm of locusts during Sam's trial, then used the potatoes to lure them into the building's ventilation system. It was all part of a calculated plan to break Sam's spirit and lead him to his downfall. That night, something even stranger happens. The supposedly dead Sam appears in the bedroom of the odd-looking church member, the same man who had tried to stop the autopsy. Sam demands to know why he poisoned those seeking his help. The truth finally comes out. This man is the very same person whom Sam resurrected from the fire a decade ago. After miraculously coming back to life, he struggled with the scars of his burns and the hardships of his disfigured existence. His bitterness turned into hatred, and he sought revenge by framing Sam for murder. But Sam doesn't show anger. Instead, he forgives him and disappears. By the time Mulder and Dana arrive, it's too late. The man has taken his own life, overcome with guilt. In the final scene, Mulder receives a chilling call from the police captain. Sam's body has gone missing from the morgue. What's even more unbelievable is that a staff member swears they saw him get up and walk out on his own. No one knows where Sam has gone, but one thing is certain. Despite all the pain and betrayal he endured, he remained pure of heart, forgiving those who wronged him. The case is closed. The scene shifts to a prison, where an inmate with striking golden eyes extends his arm through the narrow food slot of his cell door. His arm stretches and morphs unnaturally as he attempts to unlock the door. Just as he is about to escape, footsteps approach, forcing him to abandon his plan. The visitor is a bespectacled but bald doctor, a bleeding heart determined to help the inmate gain his freedom. The prisoner, named Thomas, is no ordinary man. He is a mutant. Despite his youthful appearance, he is actually over 100 years old. Every 30 years, Thomas must consume 5 human livers to sustain himself, using human bile to construct a nest for hibernation. The last time he emerged from hibernation, he was on the verge of killing Dana to complete his cycle when she and Mulder managed to capture him. In court, Mulder does everything he can to convince the jury that Thomas is a century-old, liver-eating predator, but no one is willing to believe that such a charming young man could be a monster. The doctor testifies that Thomas is mentally ill, further swaying the jury in his favor. To Mulder's frustration, the highly dangerous mutant is set free. As he walks past Mulder, Thomas flashes him a smug smile. Knowing Thomas's pattern, Mulder realizes that he still needs one more liver before he can return to hibernation. Determined to stop him, he begins tailing him closely. Newly released, Thomas takes a job at an animal shelter. Struggling to suppress his hunger, he first devours a dead rat before setting his sights on a beautiful woman. However, before he can make his move, Mulder appears, forcing Thomas to abandon his hunt. Hoping to find undeniable evidence to put Thomas away for good, Dana tracks down an aging detective who investigated the case 30 years ago. The old detective explains that back then, only 4 of the 5 victims' bodies were ever recovered. The 5th was never found, though a partially eaten liver was left behind. Dana follows the detective to an abandoned factory where one of the murders took place. After surveying the area, the detective, relying on years of experience, determines that the missing body is likely buried beneath their feet. When workers dig up the ground, they uncover a skeleton still wearing a ring. Upon further examination, the bones near the liver area display clear bite marks. Meanwhile, Thomas has already selected his next victim. He parks outside the target's home, unaware that Mulder is watching from a distance. However, after days without rest, exhaustion catches up with Mulder and he dozes off. When he wakes up, Thomas is gone. Unbeknownst to Mulder, Thomas has slipped into a sewer drain beneath his car. With his ability to stretch and contort his body, he slithers through the pipes, making his way into the victim's house via the toilet. Just as he is about to emerge, the homeowner's daughter, thinking the toilet is clogged, casually shuts the lid and locks it. Blocked from his entry point, Thomas is forced to abandon the plan and crawl back out through a window. Realizing he has lost track of his target, Mulder rushes to the house and knocks on the door, forcing Thomas to flee in his car. Mulder has now spent 3 days and nights without sleep, his body on the verge of collapse. Dana convinces him to go home and rest, assuring him that they will continue the case once he has recovered. Back in his apartment, Mulder falls into a deep sleep, snoring like a pig. But Thomas is not done yet. He slithers through the ventilation ducts and sneaks into Mulder's room. However, instead of attacking, he scratches his own face and then reports to the authorities that Mulder assaulted him. Dazed and barely awake, Mulder finds himself arrested. Though higher-ups intervene and secure his release, they warn him to drop the case. Meanwhile, Dana receives confirmation that the bite marks on the skeleton match Thomas's dental records. The evidence is now indisputable. Thomas is a killer. As Mulder and Dana prepare to arrest him, the bald doctor pays Thomas a bald visit in his cell. Thomas gives him a sinister smile. By the time Mulder and Dana arrive, the doctor is already dead, his liver missing with his bald head spared. With his final victim secured, Thomas has now completed his cycle and is ready to hibernate. Mulder and Dana race to Thomas's nest, a location he has used for decades. Once an abandoned site, it has since been converted into a hotel. Mulder pries open the elevator shaft's maintenance hatch, revealing Thomas's eerie nest below. Just as Thomas is about to enter hibernation, Mulder's arrival disrupts him. Enraged, Thomas emerges from his nest and gives chase. In a desperate struggle, Mulder scrambles out of the shaft with Dana's help. In a final move, Mulder activates the elevator, sending it plummeting downward, dragging Thomas into the machinery where he is crushed to death. With Thomas finally defeated, the case comes to a close. The scene shifts to a small village in the United States, where 2 villagers are bringing ammunition to their barn after several cows have been mysteriously killed. Suddenly, a creature hiding in the shadows leaps at one of the villagers. The other villager immediately shoots and kills the creature, only to discover that after its death, the creature transforms into a fully naked human being. Mulder and Dana are called to investigate the incident. The elderly villager and his son are the ones who killed the creature. They reveal that the creature was, in fact, a local Native American boy, which complicates matters for them. The father and son insist that the killing was unintentional, showing Mulder the wounds on the son's body, which were inflicted by the creature. The son explains that there are no wild animals in the area, but their cows and sheep are being killed every night by some unknown creature, something beyond human capability. He also claims to feel the constant sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. The ground is wet and muddy from a recent rain, and Mulder finds human footprints that slowly morph into animal tracks. He also discovers a piece of human skin on the ground. Mulder and Dana visit the home of the Native American boy who was killed. The locals are unfriendly, but the sheriff is cooperative. They examine the boy's body and find a scar and sharp teeth, which are new and have recently appeared. According to the boy's dental records, his teeth had been perfectly healthy before. Mulder requests an autopsy, but the sheriff refuses, informing them that the boy will be cremated that very evening. Mulder shares with Dana the information he has gathered. Several decades ago, a series of brutal murders occurred in the same area. The killer tore apart 7 victims, and the wounds were believed to have been made by a wild animal. The police shot and killed the creature, but when they searched for its body, all they found was a human corpse. This mirrors the current case exactly, what seemed to be a creature turned back into a human after death. At the boy's funeral, the boy's sister gives Dana a wolf tooth pendant, telling her it was her brother's heirloom. As the boy's body is set alight, the locals sing a song. The elderly man's son arrives at the ceremony, removes his hat, and shows respect for the boy. Meanwhile, the elderly man sits drinking outside his home, unaware that a pair of eyes are peeping at him from a distance. Suddenly, a beast leaps from the shadows and sends him to meet Satan. Mulder finds the creature's fur and another piece of human skin near the crime scene. Dana, not far away, discovers the elderly man's son. Assuming he might have been attacked by the creature, Dana takes him to the hospital, where he learns of his father's death. He is deeply saddened, and Mulder urges the Native American sheriff to reveal the truth. The sheriff takes Mulder to visit an elder who explains the origins of an ancient Native American werewolf legend. Decades ago, the tribe summoned a spirit that ended up attacking humans. Those who were attacked transformed into werewolves at night and returned to their normal human selves during the day with no memory of their actions. Mulder recalls that the werewolf boy had a sister and suspects that she might also carry the werewolf gene. But something is strange about her. She seems traumatized after witnessing her brother's transformation and the death of her father at his hands. Mulder remembers that the dead man's son had previously been attacked by a werewolf, leading him to suspect that the son may have already been turned into one. Later, as Dana drives the man home after his hospital discharge, night falls. The man suddenly becomes agitated, tearing apart his house in a fit of rage. His eyes change color, and he grows sharp fangs, slowly transforming into a full werewolf. Mulder and the sheriff rush to the elderly man's house, where they meet up with Dana. Just as they are searching for the man, he lunges at them from the corner of the room, now fully transformed. Fortunately, the sheriff arrives just in time and shoots the werewolf dead. Afterward, the man's human form returns. With the case finally resolved, the mystery of the werewolf is brought to a close. The scene shifts to a nightclub, where a woman lightly touches a man's hand, instantly making him feel desire. He takes the woman home. But after their passionate encounter, the man suddenly starts foaming at the mouth and dies on the bed, while the woman coldly watches him die. What happens next is even more bizarre. Moments after the man's death, the woman transforms into a man herself. She changes into the dead man's clothes and walks out. Dana and Mulder were tasked with investigating supernatural cases. They arrive at the crime scene, where the victim died from an arterial rupture caused by excessive passion. His wallet and valuables have been stolen. Surveillance footage shows the victim walking into his room with a woman, but by midnight, only a man dressed in the victim's clothes is seen leaving. Mulder informs Dana that in the past few weeks, 5 similar deaths have occurred. The victims had unusually high levels of external hormones, hundreds of times the normal amount. These hormones drive intense desire, but when they exceed a threshold, they cause blood vessels to rupture, leading to death. Furthermore, all the victims share the same DNA, meaning the killer is the same person. This person seems to possess both male and female characteristics and can produce potent external hormones, basically a walking aphrodisiac. Mulder mentions a secluded cult nearby whose white clay is renowned. The secretion found near the victims' mouths shares a similar composition to the cult's clay. Without wasting time, they head to the area to learn more about the cult's history. A local resident tells them that the cult never interacts with the outside world, and the photos they've seen were taken 30 years ago. Dana meets some members of the cult in town while they are shopping for supplies. At first, a shy young man doesn't want to speak to her, but after noticing Dana's friendliness and beauty, he shakes her hand. The moment their hands touch, Dana feels a sense of attraction, as though she's falling in love. Mulder's appearance interrupts the interaction, and Dana watches as the young man and the other cult members leave. Mulder and Dana drive and walk to the secluded cult. After explaining their purpose, the cult members invite them to dinner. Dana encounters the young man again, and during the meal, one of the cult members chokes on his food. Dana tries to help, but the others stop her. The cult members explain that their doctrine is to follow nature's course and not interfere with life or death, so they watch as the man chokes to death. This eerie event deeply disturbs Mulder and Dana. Later that night, Mulder and Dana discover the cult members gathering. Mulder sneaks to follow them and finds out they're taking the deceased man to the basement, where they coat his body with the local white clay. Once the cult members leave, Mulder investigates and is shocked to find that the man who had been choked to death has transformed into a woman, and she is alive again. Mulder realizes that the cult members have the ability to change their gender and are immortal. Terrified, he rushes to find Dana. Meanwhile, Dana has been lured into a room by the young man under the pretense of revealing case details. The young man seems to have fallen in love with her, and as he lightly touches her hand, Dana suddenly loses the ability to move. Just as he attempts to assault her for a baby, Mulder bursts into the room to save her shitty life. However, Dana has no memory of what just happened. As they leave the room, they find the cult members waiting for them, but to their surprise, they are allowed to leave without further trouble. Back in the city, the shape-shifting killer targets a young woman in a nightclub. Now appearing as a handsome young man, he kills her in the same manner, then transforms into a woman and seduces a man who loves to talk on the phone. Anyone who makes physical contact with him instantly becomes infatuated. The man takes him to his car, and just as they are about to get intimate, a police officer interrupts. The officer demands identification, but the killer knocks him unconscious. The man in the car watches in shock as the shapeshifter transforms from a sexy woman into an ugly man. Dana and Mulder track the killer using the victim's credit card information. They learn that the killer was once a member of the cult, but left because he was attracted to the outside world. During a confrontation with the killer, Mulder watches him shapeshift and escape. Dana corners the killer in an alley, but just as she's about to apprehend him, a group of cult members suddenly appears, captures the killer, and disappears before her eyes. Dana and Mulder return to the cult's location, only to find it abandoned. Mulder witnesses the basement where they had once brought the dead man back to life, now sealed with cement. The mysterious cult has vanished without a trace, leaving only a crop circle behind. The scene shifts to Mulder and Dana being called to investigate a new case where a 30-person logging crew, who had been sent up a mountain on a mission, mysteriously vanished overnight. The FBI had previously sent 2 officers to investigate, but they too disappeared without a trace. Mulder and Dana arrive at the base of the mountain, where a police officer drives them up, accompanied by the logging crew's foreman. However, as soon as they reach the mountain, the tires are punctured by nails left by environmental activists, forcing the group to continue on foot. They arrive at the small cabin where the missing loggers had stayed, but everything seems normal at first. As they walk deeper into the forest, they discover a massive insect cocoon wrapped in what looks like spider silk. Dana approaches for a closer look and is horrified to see a human hand protruding from inside. The accompanying officer cuts open the cocoon, revealing the body of a logger, completely drained of bodily fluids and now a desiccated corpse. The foreman stays behind at the cabin, but an unexpected visitor arrives, an environmental activist who had placed the nails on the road. A few days earlier, the environmental activist had secretly followed the loggers up the mountain, intending to sabotage their work, but instead, he encountered a mysterious species that attacked and devoured the loggers. The activist was the only one to escape. He explains that these predatory creatures only appear at night and warns everyone not to go outside after dark. The foreman scoffs at the warning and ventures out for a walk, but nothing happens. The next day, the group continues their search and finds a massive tree that has been felled. This tree is at least 500 years old. Inside the tree trunk, they discover strange substances. When they examine the samples under a microscope, they are shocked to find that the material contains swarms of tiny insects. The environmental activist then reveals that ever since the ancient tree was cut down, hordes of predatory insects have emerged at night. The creatures had been sleeping in the tree for centuries, and now, released by the unaware loggers, they began attacking and devouring everyone. Realizing the danger, the foreman decides to flee the mountain by car. However, the car stalls, and with nightfall approaching, swarms of flying insects fill the air. Tiny predatory bugs begin crawling through the car's seams, and the foreman quickly succumbs to them. Now, only Mulder, Dana, the environmental activist, and an inconspicuous young officer remain in the cabin. The group believes the foreman must have secretly left the mountain, so they don't worry too much and manage to make it through the night without incident. The next morning, the environmental activist is caught stealing the gas canister from the engine, which Mulder notices. He explains that the gas is only enough to keep the cabin's power running for about 15 hours, not enough for everyone to drive down the mountain. He suggests he can take the remaining gas to his Jeep on a nearby ridge and return to rescue everyone. Mulder, feeling sympathetic, agrees. The activist takes the gas, which puts everyone in a precarious situation. If the lights go out, the predatory insects will swarm the cabin and devour them. That night, as the group huddles in the cabin, Dana notices the predatory insects crawling in through the cracks in the door. The fuel in the engine runs out, but just as the insects begin to attack, daylight breaks, and they narrowly escape the danger. The group decides to hike down the mountain in the morning. Along the way, they find the foreman's car, his body sealed inside by the insect webs. Realizing they won't make it down before nightfall, they are relieved when the activist returns in his Jeep. However, just as they near the base of the mountain, the Jeep hits one of the nails placed earlier to block the loggers, and the vehicle stalls. The activist attempts to check on the situation, but he is attacked by the insects and dies in agony. The bugs swarm through the cracks of the Jeep, overwhelming the activist. The next morning, a rescue team arrives after receiving a distress signal. They find the Jeep, but inside, they discover the group has been transformed into insect cocoons. Dana and Mulder are fortunate, as they had only been in the cocoons for a few hours and are revived with medical treatment. The rescue team informs Mulder that the government has used insecticide and fire to eliminate all the predatory insects in the forest. The case of the missing loggers is finally brought to a close. The scene shifts to a power research laboratory in Washington, D.C., where a balding professor is testing a turbine. The janitor is cleaning nearby when the lab door suddenly shuts. The janitor starts the machine outside, and moments later, he writes a formula on the professor's blackboard. Tragically, the balding professor is sucked into the turbine and killed. Mulder and Dana are called to investigate the professor's death, which marks the second scientist to die mysteriously at the lab within 6 months. An elderly professor and a suited man greet them at the lab. The suited man informs Mulder that the first victim, Dr. Arthur, died in a car crash 6 months ago. Mulder's investigation leads him to the janitor, who was the only one present when Dr. Arthur died. The janitor has cerebral palsy and has lived in a care facility for years. Just as Mulder is about to question him, the janitor experiences a sudden flash of Dr. Arthur's murder, followed by him counting stars. Mulder notices a strange number sequence written on the janitor's paper, which he pockets. At the lab, Mulder notices a new line of mathematical formulas on the blackboard, which after a handwriting analysis, confirms his suspicion. Mulder believes the janitor might be involved, but Dana disagrees. She points out that the formulas are highly complex, far beyond what someone with the janitor's low IQ could produce. Meanwhile, the janitor continues to experience disturbing flashes of Dr. Arthur's death, as if someone is controlling his mind to make him kill. The janitor later sneaks into the lab and drowns Dr. Arthur in liquid nitrogen. Mulder uncovers that Dr. Arthur's computer was accessed for 5 hours after his death, using a login from Dr. Arthur himself, who had died in the car crash 6 months prior. Dana tries to open the files under Dr. Arthur's name, but finds them password protected. Mulder suggests trying the sequence number, and to their surprise, it works. Inside the files are complex research blueprints, suggesting someone is continuing Dr. Arthur's work. Mulder realizes the number the janitor wrote was the password. Despite the janitor's apparent involvement, Mulder is baffled. How could a low IQ janitor, especially one with cerebral palsy, carry out 2 murders and still be capable of completing such intricate formulas? Mulder questions the suited man, wondering if Dr. Arthur faked his death to continue his research. The suited man dismisses this idea, leading them to the freezer room, where they discover that Dr. Arthur's body was mangled beyond recognition in the car crash. Only his brain remains, frozen in liquid nitrogen, awaiting future technological advances that might bring him back to life. Mulder realizes the brain's container is malfunctioning, with abnormal brainwave activity. The suited man reveals that Dr. Arthur was born into a wealthy family and had graduated from Harvard as an aerospace engineer. The janitor, on the other hand, was sent to the care facility at age 3 due to his cerebral palsy. What is strange, however, is that both men share the same birthday. To test his theory, Mulder gives a photo of Dr. Arthur to the tech team, who digitally alter it to remove his beard and thin out his features. The result is startling. The altered image closely resembles the janitor. Mulder realizes that Dr. Arthur and the janitor were twins, separated at birth. Dr. Arthur was adopted by a wealthy family, while the janitor was left in the care facility. Because twins share a psychic bond, Dr. Arthur's brainwaves have been influencing the janitor's actions, controlling him to commit murder. Unknown to them, the suited man has been secretly watching everything. He increases the temperature of the metal container holding Dr. Arthur's brain. Meanwhile, the janitor, under Dr. Arthur's control, continues the research. As the temperature rises, Dr. Arthur's brain waves affect the janitor's mental state, making him increasingly unstable. After writing the final formula, the janitor begins to lose control. The suited man, aware of Dr. Arthur's influence on the janitor, plans to kill Dr. Arthur after the research is completed and steal his findings. However, when the suited man steps away, Dr. Arthur seizes control of the janitor, causing him to knock the suited man unconscious and toss him into the turbine room. Just as the janitor is about to go on a rampage, Mulder and Dana arrive, helping to awaken the janitor's consciousness and saving the suited man. It turns out that the 2 previous deaths were also the result of attempts to steal Dr. Arthur's research, which led to Dr. Arthur killing the scientists in retaliation. As the temperature in the metal container rises, Dr. Arthur's control over the janitor fades, and the janitor, now free from influence, packs his belongings and leaves the care facility. With that, the case is finally closed. The scene shifts to white car speeding down the road, being chased by several police cars. The driver, a man with curly hair, heads down the curly road and toward a seaside port. He gets out of the car and climbs over a gate. The police quickly rush forward, brandishing their nightsticks to arrest him. However, the man not only resists arrest, but also injures one of the officers. At that moment, another officer uses a taser, striking the man. While a normal person would immediately collapse from the shock, the curly-haired man appears unaffected and continues to flee for his curly life. The police give chase, firing at him, but the man seems unharmed and jumps into the sea. On the upper floor of the port, the police discover bloodstains from the man who had been shot. Surprisingly, his blood is green. Mulder and Dana arrive at the scene. The police inform them that they have yet to find the curly-haired man who jumped into the sea. Mulder notices the car the man was driving has a hospital logo and is registered under the name of a bald doctor. They visit the bald doctor's lab, where the doctor casually states that the car was stolen and asks them to leave. Later that evening, a mysterious figure in black visits the bald doctor's lab, and the doctor is soon found dead with his bald head spared. It seems someone is going to great lengths to cover up this case, but what's shocking is that the police declare the bald doctor's death a suicide. The lab is in complete disarray, and the idea that it was a suicide seems absurd to Mulder and Dana. Mulder finds a vial in the lab and asks Dana to take it for analysis. 3 days pass, and the police still haven't found the curly-haired man. Just as they pack up and leave, the man surfaces from the water. Mulder sneaks into the bald doctor's house, hoping to find clues. Just then, the curly-haired man who had just climbed out of the sea calls him. He says he is badly injured and has been in the water for 3 days, but somehow managed to survive, something that would have killed any normal person. The man passes out, and paramedics who arrive to treat him are shocked by the severity of his wounds. They inject him with a shot, but unexpectedly, the injection releases a toxic gas from his body, knocking out everyone in the room. Meanwhile, Dana's analysis reveals that the vial from the bald doctor contains a green virus cultivated in plant cells. The bald doctor had been injecting this virus into humans as part of a gene therapy experiment. What's even more shocking is that the virus is of extraterrestrial origin. Mulder visits another one of the bald doctor's research facilities. Using the key he stole from the doctor's house, he unlocks a door only to find something horrifying. Adult men growing in vials, all part of the bald doctor's twisted experiments. Terrified, Mulder quickly leaves, but 3 mysterious men are tailing him. He manages to escape and brings Dana back to show her his discovery. However, when they return to the lab the next day, the place is completely abandoned, and the men in the vials are gone. A man with knowledge of the situation tells them about a secret CIA organization which conducts research on extraterrestrial life and handles classified activities. The leader of this group is a high-ranking official, and it would be difficult for Mulder alone to challenge their authority. The bald doctor had been working for this group. In 1946, they discovered the extraterrestrial virus and recruited 6 volunteers suffering from terminal diseases. They injected them with the virus, attempting to create a hybrid between humans and aliens. Only the curly-haired man survived and developed superhuman abilities. The other 5 volunteers were preserved in vials for further experimentation. The man tells Mulder that they must find the curly-haired man before the organization does and expose their crimes to the world. Mulder arrives at the curly-haired man's house, where the man is hiding in the attic. Before he can speak, however, the organization gets to him first, and the curly-haired man is killed. His diabetic blood splashes into Mulder's eyes, and he is immediately poisoned and collapses. The organization kidnaps Mulder, and the informed man tells Dana what happened. He also reveals that the only way to save Mulder is to infiltrate the organization's research facility and steal the source of the extraterrestrial virus. Dana uses the man's forged documents to sneak into the facility. She faces heavy security, with guards demanding passwords and signatures, indicating how critical the project is. Inside, Dana finds the container holding the virus's source, but to her surprise, it turns out to be an alien baby. Dana hands the alien baby over to the informed man, who arranges a trade with the organization, Mulder for the alien baby. However, when the trade takes place, the organization kills the informed man and leaves Mulder behind as they drive away. Before he dies, the man warns Dana not to trust anyone. The next day, a recovered Mulder calls Dana to tell her that the higher-ups plan to shut down their Special X-Files division, and they will both be reassigned to different departments. The story ends with a man placing the alien baby into a massive filing room. With that, the first season of this drama comes to a close.